Hey, it's Aaron, and today I'm here with Fox Shocks, and we're going to be talking about shocks. Shocking stuff. I've been wanting to use that joke all day. Alright, before we get started, let's do some quick background. This entire event was held at the IMI Motorsports Complex in Decano, Colorado. Fox Shocks brought us there. We were in both a standard stock off-the-shelf Jeep, I'll talk more about that in a minute, and then three more Jeeps with progressively more professional level shock absorption on them. All of these were street legal vehicles. They had various sizes and tires because the vehicles weren't all exactly the same, but all the tires were at 12 to 15 psi of inflation, and all the vehicles had 4 passengers in them when we rode. So there was not a whole lot of variance in passenger weight or other things. So it was about as controlled as you can get without going to extremes. The course itself was actually the beginning motocross course out at IMI. So it has some washboard, it has some broken points where you have a little bit of an elevation change in a couple of inches there, things like that, and then it had big moguls at the end, and for us, those worked out great. They weren't air catchers, would have been cool, but that wasn't what we were there for. Those moguls on a motorcycle, of course, you would be catching air, but for us, those were where we were feeling when the vehicle would bottom out because it didn't have the suspension support, or when it would come over the top and smack on the front, again, because it didn't have that suspension, or when it wouldn't do that because it did have all of that. So let's get started. We started out bone stock in a 2017 Jeep Wrangler JK. This was the Unlimited Sport model, so it had factory shocks, factory pretty much everything, and including tires and wheels. So it was, with 4 people in it, we were kind of pushing the cargo limits actually for this rig, but it was a great setup, and it is capable, but not overly capable. We had to take everything slow, about 10 miles an hour. It bottomed out a lot. Next, we went to another 2017 Wrangler Unlimited. This also a sport model, but it had been upgraded with a 2.5-inch suspension lift to accommodate 33-inch BFGs and Fox 2.0 series shocks. So these are kind of the manufacturer standard for moving up the line and off-road. You'll find these shocks on Ford, Jeep, Ram, and other products all over the place, Toyota, other places. So these are kind of the standard off-road upgrade kind of shocks. This vehicle did a whole lot better than its bone stock counterpart. It felt really good, it did pretty well, but we still had to take everything at low speeds. These shocks are not made for bouncing and jouncing. Then we went up to a 2020 model, so this moves into the JL series of Jeep Wrangler. This again was a Wrangler Unlimited. This had been modified by our friends at RMT Overland. You might remember I did a video with the RMT Overland outfitted Gladiator. So this was somewhat similar to that. It had some of the same components. So this is a 3.5-inch lift, much bigger tires, 35-inch BFGs on 17-inch wheels, and Fox Performance 2.5 series shocks. So these are the same shocks that were on that Gladiator. This time we were able to go a little bit faster. We were able to absorb a whole lot more, and it almost never bottomed out. Now, there is the difference because the tires are bigger and the suspension lift is bigger. Yes, you do have a bigger breakover. But at the same time, we weren't feeling the tires lifting. So they weren't coming off the ground on those moguls. They were staying flat, staying put. Whereas with the previous 2, they would come off the ground a little bit as you apex. And that's, again, all comes down to shocks. So that's the next level. With you're going to those 2.5s, they're pretty great shocks. That's probably where most people are going to be at when they're outfitting their own consumer rig and they're not planning on racing or any of that stuff. If you are going to race, you go to the next level after that. There we went to a 2021 Jeep Gladiator. So this is the Gladiator JL. It had a lot of upgrades to it. This was almost a Baja-ready rig. Had they bead-locked the tires and added a roll cage, it would have been ready to go. It's a 3.5-inch lift. The Fox Factory Race Series 3.0 shocks, which are kind of the entry-level race series shocks from Fox, and 37-inch BFGs were, these KM3s were gigantor. Just a beautiful setup, wonderful setup. And then they had 2 spare tires in the bed to kind of counterbalance the weight. There were 4 of us in there, remember. So these are pro-level shocks. They allow a lot of speed. We were able to almost double our speed around that track and still did not bounce and jounce at near the level we were at slow speeds in that first stock Wrangler. So this was a wonderful setup. This is kind of the beginner level for Baja style racing. The 3.0, the Pro Series, has cooling fins and a lot of other stuff on it. It is made for longer term use, so you use it and abuse it longer term, meaning for longer periods of time without brakes. So what we learned is that there are just all these, I learned that there are just a lot of different levels of what you want to do out there. Now, you don't necessarily have to go to Fox for these sorts of answers, but it was really cool to have them all back to back from one manufacturer so that I could feel the difference from one to the next. And it really is a game changer. If you are upgrading a rig and you are balking because you don't want to spend $4,000 for a small suspension lift and some vast improvements in your shock absorption, something like this event would change your mind quickly. It becomes very, very clear how people can spend $10,000, $15,000, and $20,000 upgrading a vehicle to make it extremely off-road ready. And it's well worth the money if you're going to be using it. So very cool event, very cool to see this, and a lot of fun to meet the different people and to see all the things on display. You've been seeing photos of that, just seeing what's out there, what's going on, what kind of things they have. They have fittings for all kinds of trucks, light duty, heavy duty, you name it. They have setups for every kind of off-road rig you can name, including whatever you might be custom making in your own garage or shop right now. So very, very cool and a lot of fun. So that's what we got over here, listening to some garbage music and checking out Fox shocks. Hope you liked it. Talk to you again soon.